Hi, my name is Amanda Marbais, and I'm reading from my collection of short stories, Claiming a Body, from Moon City Press. And there are a lot of great titles on Moon City Press, so if you get a chance, you should check them out. And I'm going to read from my first story. The woman's boyfriend agreed to go camping despite being called Needle Dick by her son. Driving across the Iowa plains, the woman broke their silence with stories of her high school ski trips. She recounted bumming a waiter's weed and breaking her thumb in a collision with a ski instructor. She feathered a hand over her boyfriend's neck and laughed. Her son turned toward the window and slipped in his earbuds, making it clear he wouldn't be asked to ski or rock climb or alpine slide or any other outdoor activity she had in mind. The next day at the campsite, they sat in collapsible chairs and ate eggs from foil pouches among the lupine and milkweed. They watched the sunrise without a word, and finally her son said he'd like to see the river. "Stay close," she said. There were no other campers around, but last night the far-off bawl of an animal had a quality like human weeping, and maybe the snap of branches and the pawing of earth meant a bear had been foraging nearby. She handed him bear spray and said to stay within 300 yards. The trailhead was beautiful, hemmed with the blinding bones of white aspen before disappearing toward the river. "They'll get a kick out of it," the boyfriend said this without conviction, "and it might be fun to squeeze in a quickie." He already had a hand under her shirt. Prior to the boyfriend, the woman had been celibate for a year, and since they'd discovered each other's kinks, her desire had become unbearable. An hour later, her son stumbled into camp, his cheeks smeared with dirt, his lips fluttering soundlessly. He'd uncapped the bear spray, but hadn't deployed it, or at least there were no capsaicin burns, and she thought, thank God. But when she zipped his hoodie and their eyes met, she wanted to tear away her own skin. He said, "There's a sick guy in the woods." His description centered on a foot, sweatpants, and a horrible face. The boyfriend would go take a look. When he returned, he mumbled, "Maybe the guy passed out," but his wide eyes had an unnatural whiteness that nauseated her. "We're calling the police," she said. The boyfriend dialed immediately, but with his phone to his ear, he sounded nervous, like he needed the officer's reassurance. His neediness rankled the woman, since her son was now shivering and crying. When the police arrived, she held the boy's reeking body close and inhaled the sharpness of weeds and sweat. His bones seemed to melt, and his rubbery arms slackened their hold around her waist. As the questions wore on, he wound down to monosyllables. She wanted to cram a hiking pole into the cop's mouth because with each answer her son retreated, his eyes unfocusing until he all but disappeared. The boyfriend brooded as they drove, and she sat in the back holding her son's hand as he stared out the window. At home, the boyfriend sat them on the couch. Here came all the clever ideas. He said he watched tons of forensic documentaries. He crouched forward, raised his hand, and sliced the air like a coach. He said hundreds of bodies go unclaimed for years. People hike right by them in the woods. Lakes and ponds are filled with corpses, limbs inches from our legs as we're swimming around on 4th of July or Memorial Day or whatnot. "God, we swim right over them," said the boy. The boyfriend was so sincere, but the woman gave him a look like, "Where is this going?" He went on, "This guy's family will get to see him again. They'll have a service. They'll bury him. You're a hero." The woman willed him to stop talking. She wanted to grab a pillow and scream into it until the reverberation shot the feathers and dust and detritus right out the other side, and she wanted to shadow the windows with her rage. The woman and her son were in a Walgreens, shopping for allergy medicine and trying to be normal, but her son was staring, eyes unfocused at what? Maybe razors, maybe adult diapers? "What's up?" she whispered. "Do you believe that hero shit?" Ignoring the word shit, she said, "Sure." He half smiled and said to the nearest guy in a red smock, "I'm a hero." "Okay," said the employee. But for weeks he cursed at her, curled up on her bedroom floor whenever she slept alone, and in the morning he recounted detailed nightmares of drowning, a plane crashing into the side of their house, a man beating her in an alley, and the scenarios felt like TV plots, but her son's voice broke with each unburdening, and it bothered her that drama had become his reality, and she missed the unremarkable days they passed together before someone bludgeoned a man near his tent. One night he was sitting up in his sleeping bag in the center of the floor, and he asked how long it took a person to fall apart. The neighbor kid had a cop dad, and he said the weeds surrounding a corpse eventually absorbed trace amounts of blood, then secreted them out again in the cells of the leaves. And that's why they use the dogs, he said, to find the scent even when animals pick the bones clean. That's unhelpful, she said. I knew you'd say that. He laid down again, pulled the zipper to his chin, cocooning himself in the nylon bag. We're always alone, he said. Other people have good advice, you know. She got out of bed and sat on the cool floor beside him. In the light from the hallway, her son blinked slowly. He told her that Cop Dad found the name of the victim, Jay Fleming, in a database. He was an only child, said the boy. He repeated the name Jay 4 times like a ritual. Do you think Jay's soul hovered over a tent that night? Not sure I believe in a soul, Muffin, she said. Aren't you afraid of going to hell? Not at all, she said. I am, said the boy. Jesus, that's dark, she said. If you went to hell, I'd rescue you. Mom, he said. His voice was high, melting years from his life. Clearly, he now pictured himself roasting in the flames of hell. She wished she could flog herself right there. She got back into bed and stared at the ceiling. Every night after this, the woman handed him a Benadryl, and every night he took it with milk. The boyfriend thought this was wrong, and the woman reminded him he didn't have children, and later she would apologize for shouting. He said, women have told me worse, and she slammed the cabinet door in answer. A few nights of sleep made the boy less zombie-like. His energy returned, and he began riding his bike obsessively to the park to play laser tag, to the green belt by the river, and sometimes the neighbor kid with frothy red hair and the cop for a father rode beside him, but often he would take off alone on Saturday mornings and not return until dinner, his tires caked with mud. And that's all I'm going to read. Hope you can check it out, and thank you for listening.